Hello, my intelligent students. Welcome to our next lesson, which is 6-2, and it's solving systems by substitution. Right? Let's have a quick review about what substitution is. So right behind me, I have this review equation. It says 3x minus 7 plus x squared, right? And then it tells us that I want my x to be a 4. And what we're going to do, remember to evaluate this, is we substitute the 4 for the x. So hopefully this is ringing some bells. But I'm going to come back here. And wherever I see an x, I'm going to put the 4. So I'm going to rewrite my equation real quick. And I'm going to put the 4 where the x used to be, because I'm substituting. So this is review. So I'm going to put a 4 there, put a 4 there. That makes 12 minus 7. 4 squared is 16. This makes 5 plus 16. And then that will add up to 21. Right? So the only reason I did this was just to remind us what is substitution. And that's the power of the equal sign. That this x and the 4 can be interchanged. It can be substituted. So that's what we did here, and we evaluated. But we're not going to be doing easy stuff like this anymore. This was just a review of our substitution. So pretty soon, I'm going to put some notes over here, and I want you to make sure that you also have that written down. But make sure you have this just as a practice. So here are the steps that we're going to be using today to actually solve our systems by substitution. And this will make more sense as we're going through a problem. But step 1 is you're going to isolate an x or the y in one of the equations. Then we're going to take that, we're going to plug it into the second equation. We're going to solve for that variable. And then once we solve, we're going to take that answer and we're going to plug it back into our other equation to find the other variable. So this may seem confusing, but it will make sense in just a moment when we actually do a problem. Just make sure that we get this stuff copied down. All right, so here's our first example. We have a y equals a 3x and an x plus y equals negative 32. So here's our system of equations. And now we're going to start solving it by substitution. So the first thing is isolate the x or y. Well, look, we're lucky here because you see how this y equals the 3x? The y is already isolated. It's already by itself. If you take a look in comparison, this x has a y with it. This y has an x with it. They're together. We actually are looking for a variable, an x or a y, to be completely by itself. And so we already have step 1 is already done for us. It's already eliminated. So what I like to do is I like to put a box around it. And then we're going to plug it in for step number 2 into this y. So let me rewrite this equation. So we go x plus, put my negative 32. But again, what am I going to put here for my y term? I'm actually going to substitute in this 3x. So I substitute in that 3x. So guess what? That was what step 2 was. Plug in the one equation, the 3x, into the second equation. So now we're going to move on to step 3. We're going to solve it. Now because we did this and there's no letter y, we have like terms. So we can go x plus 3x is 4x. We divide by 4, and then we have x equals negative 8. And this is step 3. We just solved for one of the variables, right? So what do I have to do now? Well, now I got to move on to step 4, where we're going to take this and we're going to plug it back into one of the equations to find the other variable. Because we found x, I need to find y. Well, take a look. Which one do you think would be easier to put it into? Should I put the negative 8 where the x is, up here? Or since this y is already by itself, if I put the negative 8 back where this x is, that will tell me what y is. So that's what I'm going to do. So here, right next to it, I'm going to put y equals my 3x. But remember, what am I going to do? I'm going to put this guy up here for the x. I'm going to y equals 3 instead of x. I'm going to put negative 8. And then I get y, and that just means times negative 24. And we just did step 4. But this is how you're supposed to write your answer. Remember when we were doing it by graphing and where they cross over, that's your line? So make sure that your answer looks like this. You go negative 8, comma, negative 24. And that's how all of our answers should look for solving systems. It's always going to be an ordered pair, an x followed by a y. All right, so make sure that you do get this copied down, and we'll move on to example number 2. All right, so here is our next example. It reads, 2x plus 2y equals a 38, and our second equation is y equals x plus 3. So here's our system of equations, and then this one's a little bit more complicated, but again, we're going to run through these steps. So step 1, isolate the x or the y. Well, take a look. This x has a 2 in front of it, so that's not isolated. The y, that has a 2 in front of it. They both have coefficients. But look down here. You see how the y, again, is the one by itself? There's nothing with it. So we're going to do this. So step 1 is already done for us, and I like to put my little box around it. And now, remember, I'm going to substitute this, because this x plus 3 is the same thing as the letter y. That's the power of the equal sign. So I'm going to rewrite this equation underneath it. So there's my 2x plus 2. Now I'm going to put my box there. So just for a moment, I'm going to put big parentheses equals 38. So you see how I don't have my y? I'm going to put this right here. I'm going to substitute that in. So this is where I get my x plus 3. Now, again, we've been practicing our equations. So our first step is to distribute. So I'm going to drop down to 2x. I'm going to go 2 times x is another 2x. And then 2 times 3 is plus 6 equals 38. I have my like terms. That's 4x plus 6 equals 38. Right? So this is what we're doing. Step 3, we're solving for our x term. Minus the 6 from both sides. That's a 32. Drops down to 4x. Divide by the coefficient. And then this x equals 8. Right? So we did step 3 and we solved it. And we found our x term. But again, what do we do with the x term? Well, we plug it back into the equations. Now, you can plug this back into this big one up here and go 2 times 8 plus 2y equals 38 and try and solve for y. Or you can do the easy one which says y equals x plus 3. I'm definitely going to do this one. I'm going to use my y x plus 3. But instead of x, what am I going to substitute in? My answer. I'm going to put in my 8. So I'm going to go y equals 8 plus 3, which is pretty easy math, and y equals 11. So that is step 4, plugging your first answer into one of the equations to find the other variable. We found the y. And again, how do we write our answers? Like an ordered pair. All right. We'll do one more, and that will be it. All right, so here is our example 3. It says y equals negative 2x plus 2, and then y equals 7x plus 11. So again, step 1, isolate an x or a y. Well, look at this. Both of these have y's completely by themselves. So it doesn't matter which one we choose. I'm just going to choose the top one. And so what I'm going to do is so this is already isolated. I'm going to put my box around it. because that's the power of the equal sign, that this minus 2x plus 2, even though it doesn't make sense, it is the exact same thing as the letter y. So I'm going to put it right there. So here's this equal sign. There's the 7x plus 11. But I'm not going to put in the y. I'm actually going to put in my minus 2x. Oops. I give myself a little bit more room. So again, I'm going to take this negative 2x plus y and put it where this y used to be. So negative 2x plus 2. All right, so you see how I took that and I plugged it in for this. Now I have to solve for x. So this is variables on different sides. So I have to get my x's together. My 11 falls down, my 2 falls down, and the negative 2 plus negative 7 is negative 9x plus 2. I'm going to go minus the 2, get a 9, drop down my 9x, divide by the coefficient negative 9, and then x equals negative 1. And it's very important that we do include these negative signs. If you leave this as a positive 1, if you make a little mistake, well, when you go to plug it back in, it's going to get wrong. Now, step 3, we already did step 3. Step 4, we got to plug this back in. So we have our x equals negative 1. It doesn't matter which one you plug this into, right? So let me plug it into the second one, right? So I'm going to put my y equals 7x plus 11. Right? I'm going to plug in my negative 1. So now I'm going to have y equals 7 times negative 1 plus 11. And then I'm just going to solve. So 7 times negative 1 is negative 7 plus 11. Y is going to equal 4. Right? So my answer will be negative 1 comma 4. But just for practice, I do want to show you that we could have substituted it in for the other equation. So I substituted it in for the second one, but let's put it back in the first one. So y equals negative 2x plus 2. But let's put that negative 1 there. So we have y equals negative 2 times negative 1 plus 2. Well, negative 2 times negative 1 makes a positive 2 plus 2. Right? Drop down that 2, and 2 plus 2 equals 4. So it does not matter which one you put this into. Just pick one. You don't have to do both, for the notes purposes, but I just wanted to show you that it doesn't matter which equation you choose. You can choose the first one or the second one to put this answer in. Right? So that's the end of this lesson. Make sure you have everything copied down. And as always, have a math-tastic day.